My name is Andrew Murchie. I'm a 3D filmmaker based in Edinburgh. I'm going to talk this morning first for probably actually about 45 minutes or so of our experience making a short film effectively with zero budget and very, very little time. Once we've done that, then I've got another kind of presentation and hopefully some kind of interactive stuff we can do, looking at how 3D works, how the technology works, how we perceive 3D. And then we've got a lot of kit we can kind of play with and experiment with and just have fun. I'm happy for us to do this however really suits everyone. If you want to ask questions as we go, I don't mind. I don't know if anyone has a preference, or if you want to wait till the end and ask questions, that's fine. Yeah, I've got 3D glasses and everything for everyone. At some point we'll switch over to the 3D monitor to watch some bits and pieces in 3D. And yeah, just shout. If there's anything that's not clear as well, just shout. I'm here to impart as much knowledge as I possibly can today. So, this kind of first bit was talking about us shooting a film. I don't know if anyone knows what the 48-hour film project is. For those who don't, it's a global challenge where you have 48 hours to shoot, to write, shoot, edit, and complete a film. As I said, it's global. It happens in different cities around the world. At different times, and then there's a grand final that generally has happened in America where all the winning films from the cities around the world come together in one big grand final competition. So you've got 2 days to go from literally nothing to delivering a complete film. The way that the kind of competition works is that you're given 4 elements. So on a Friday night, they have a kind of meeting where everyone gets together, all the teams get together, and in Edinburgh, for this one, there was 44 teams. So that was 44 short films that were getting made. Each of the teams pulls a genre from the hat. I'll tell you at the end what we pulled. And there's a whole range of them, and if you don't like the genre you pull, you are allowed to pull a kind of subgenre. But those subgenres tend to be very specialist. So, as an example, if you drew out the first draw, if you drew musical and you didn't want it, there is a risk that if you draw out of the secondary kind of genres, you might actually pull operetta, which would be even worse. So there's a risk, but then you might pull something obviously better than or less challenging than musical if you're not musically inclined. So we pull a genre from the hat. Everybody is given the same character and a character trait, so they're given a name and a trait. Everybody gets the same line of dialogue, and everybody gets the same prop. So essentially you have a different genre, but everybody gets the sort of 3 other parts. And watching the films that come out, it is quite astounding, because you've just got this huge range of films, and you're waiting to see how have they used the prop, or where have they squeezed in that line of dialogue. I guess it's also easier, because I guess I come at it from not just directing, but I like to write, and coming at it from, if you were given nothing to start with, it would probably be more challenging for us to agree on a story, to kind of move it forward in those time scales. So it kind of helps having those boundaries. So that was just a quick chat about 48 hours, so you understood what this was. Everything else I'm going to talk about here. Why do it in 3D? Challenges, creative challenges, technical challenges that we would have, our solutions to those challenges. I'll also talk about our process, and I'm happy to go into as much detail as you like, or if you're bored with it, just say move on. We'll screen the result, which is about a 5-minute short film that we shot. Then talk about other screenings and awards that the film has had, and then share just a kind of final little bit of learnings. So if anyone wants to take up the challenge of making a 3D short film in 40 hours, you can kind of maybe take those away. So why 3D? Well, for me, I actually find 3D films considerably more visually stimulating. When I see a 3D film, I know this is kind of much debated, I would actually watch every film in 3D. It just feels better. Everything's got volume, everything's got shape. After working on 3D for months and months, and then watching a 2D film, you're suddenly aware how flat it all feels. And I know the kind of cinematic purists are mortified by those kind of thoughts, but I think it's just once your brain has got used to it, you start looking at something and you feel there's actually something missing in a 2D film. I'm quite interested in how you can use 3D to enhance storytelling and how we can use that for the audience to perhaps see if we can get them to engage with the story or the character in a deeper way. And on the talk kind of later on, I'll talk about how the sort of serious Hollywood players actually approach that, which they do like very seriously. And finally, I can't really help but challenge myself. So doing it in 3D it was too much of an opportunity to kind of not do it. It hadn't actually been done outside of America when we did this, and we knew that the last team who had done it was actually the team behind Adobe TV. So we knew that, and I think we watched their film and their credits, they had something like a 40-man team working on it. So we thought, come on, we're actually a very, very small team with next to no money. And we thought, can we do it? Obviously, anyone trying to make a short film in 40 hours has got the same challenge to write it, shoot it, cut it. Doing it in 3D, you've got a bit of extra extra concern and extra worry. You have to sort of, again, I don't know how many of you are filmmakers, but when you're kind of completing a film, you're typically doing a color grade, which is getting all colours, well, firstly balanced, and then creating an overall look for the film. When you're shooting in 3D, you've also got another level of 3D grading, which is looking at the 3D and adjusting it so that you get optimum 3D for every shot, wherever possible. Script-wise, again, with anything, you don't want to write a film that doesn't engage people. So, for myself, my co-writer, it was really, really important that we wrote a script that was as engaging, and hopefully found a way to use 3D, which was the next point, is how could we use 3D? Given the limited time constraints, how could we use 3D in an interesting way? And actually, I'm going to show two films today that we made. This first film, which was our first 4-hour film, I think uses 3D relatively interestingly, but I think the other film we made uses it considerably better. That's with a bit of experience and kind of a bit more thought. We kind of really did it. And the other thing is premium experience. Consumers now view 3D, maybe because they're charged extra for it, generally as a fairly premium kind of product. They don't expect to see things badly done, though things are often badly done, unfortunately. So the aim was for us to try, with no time and no budget, to make something that could stand up to being shown in the cinema and that we wouldn't be embarrassed about. The technical challenges we faced were hardware-wise. Setting up and managing 3D hardware can be considerably more difficult than 2D. Some of the stuff we're going to play with today isn't the case, but if you're using higher end kit, it certainly is. I wrote one piece of kit that I'll show later on that kind of demonstrates that to a certain extent. Software. At the time of us doing this, there was really only one piece of video software that dealt with 3D, and it was Sony Vegas, and it was really, really buggy. So we didn't feel confident. It wasn't a piece of software that we knew or that we used, and we didn't really feel confident in using that off the shelf, so we had to find some kind of solution to that. And finally, projection. Looking at a 48-hour film project, it's a kind of indie project. So typically they screen in small independent cinemas. At the time, they generally screen in the Cameo. At the time, the Cameo at Edinburgh didn't have a 3D screen, so there was no way that we could screen this in 3D, or so it appeared. Financial challenges. Well, personnel, obviously cast and crew you need to make a film. The more experienced, obviously the better, because you're on a tight deadline. What you don't want on a tight deadline is people who really can't do it, because you're in a hurry. You need the actors to know their lines. You need the crew to know exactly what they're doing. You need to move it very quickly. So not being able to pay them was obviously a challenge. Equipment. 3D kit can be horrendously expensive. You can use cheap equipment, but would it give us the level of quality that we really wanted, to deliver? And locations. So for us to use locations, again, I don't know how many people are filmmakers here, but Edinburgh as an example, if you want to shoot in an Edinburgh park, Edinburgh Council wants £100 an hour to shoot in their parks, and you have to demonstrate that you have the correct insurance policies, etc. If you want to shoot in someone's house, unless you keep shooting in your own house, which kind of gets a bit boring for doing every film you do in your own house. If you're in other people's houses, then you've got concerns over upsetting them. On various occasions, we've had friends going, "Well, I didn't know you were going to bring a dog in the house." It was things like that. So you've got to be really, really sensitive. So yeah, locations again can be a challenge to get with no money to recompense people. So the solutions to all these things. Technically, what we decided to do was use a unibody camera. Now, a unibody camera, which is actually that kind of thing, or that kind of thing, essentially is one body, but two cameras. So we've got two lenses in these cameras, which capture your stereo image. And by having a single body camera, we weren't worried about two cameras and synchronizing and how do we view the output from them. These cameras are kind of pre-built for that. They have limitations, which we'll discuss later on, but that was really our kind of the only technical route we felt we could go down to deliver in the kind of timescales that we have. Creatively, we understood the limitations that these cameras bring, so what we needed to do was kind of reverse that and stay within those limitations. There's things you can't do with these cameras, like really tight close-ups you can't do, really wide shots you can't do. Again, when we talk about the technology and everything later, the theory, you'll understand why that is. So as long as whatever we did, we kept within the limitations of the camera, we could actually deliver a pretty good product. And financially, essentially, well, that camera's a bit different. But the smaller Sony cameras, a prosumer camera, these can be hired for something like £40 or £50 a day. So although I'm saying no budget, really for filming for one day, £40 or £50 to shoot in 3D isn't really a bad shout. Of course, being a bit of a 3D geek, I had the camera anyway, so that was cheating. Personnel-wise, it was really pulling a team together of friends, associates, all sorts that are kind of involved. So technically, one of the challenges I had there was our editor, who's the guy with dreads, works with me and does editing and motion graphics, but he had no idea about 3D. So what I had to do was give him a bit of training, show him how the kind of stuff would work, so that he could edit and then he could actually take over that from me instead of me having to do it. So that worked. We made sure that everybody knew their role within the team, gave everybody pep talk if they didn't know. A couple of them are actually Napier students who had done media in Napier College, I think at uni, so they were actually really, really good, really helpful. My co-writer has written several stage plays, so for us to write together was pretty good as well. And the actors were absolutely phenomenal. The actors, and when you see some of the dialogue they had to kind of say on the day, the actors, we didn't miss a shot for any wrong dialogue or anything. They were absolutely astounding. The two of them are professional actors, and the reason they do this is they just want to have fun. They get involved. We make it good fun for everyone. They've got something for their show reel. There's not that many films that kind of get made, and especially actors who haven't perhaps done much film. For them, this is really something exciting. So we actually found them on the likes of Facebook. There's Facebook groups where actors and filmmakers kind of congregate, and we just found them by kind of asking, does anyone want to do this? Location-wise, well, we kind of had to think about this. What we were thinking is, okay, so we're shooting in 3D. If we shot in a very small, bland room, we weren't sure that it would be particularly interesting. So what we thought was, if we could find one location that is kind of three-dimensionally interesting, that would kind of, it would naturally look good. And we found a guy who owned some woods near us, and asked him, and he said, yeah, as long as it's a non-commercial project, you can film there, it's no problem at all. So what we liked about it was, there's just so many layers of organic depth and organic 3D there that we just felt inspired that this would kind of work for us. And as I said, this was our first kind of attempt, and I really like how it kind of worked out. Software-wise, as I was saying, we didn't want to use Sony Vegas, which was the only package that really worked. So we worked out a way to edit the 3D using the normal software which we use, which is Adobe Premiere and After Effects. So we would edit using Adobe Premiere, and then we could do all our 3D grading and 3D fixing in After Effects. And again, I'll actually show you all this later on, show you how it all works. We did have to kind of customize After Effects to a certain extent, or just write some scripts that would make it very efficient for us to do the 3D grading. We could have done it without them, but by writing the scripts and creating a little toolkit for ourselves, it actually made it very, very fast, which for the kind of timescales we were working at, we had to. And obviously financially we didn't want to buy any other software as well, so actually adapting what we had meant that it worked for us. And projection-wise, well, the easiest solution for us, although it was kind of, I guess, creatively a compromise, was to use old-style red and blue glasses and to project using anaglyph. Essentially, any projector can project in red and blue because it's just a standard video file that has got both images in it. I'll explain that. So that was our solution. Technically, it would cost us a little bit to buy 100 pairs of 3D glasses, but they were something like 5 or 10 pence each. So actually, to kit out the whole cinema didn't cost us very much at all, and also gave us an opportunity to get one of those great shots of an audience all wearing 3D glasses, which certainly the organisers, the producers of the 48-hour film project in Edinburgh loved the fact that this was happening. Because not only did they get that photograph, but we got to go on radio and talk about it, and they're always looking for an angle that they can talk about something. So having a 3D film done, and done for the first time outside of America in Scotland, they were over the moon with the kind of PR opportunities of it. So process-wise, again, going back to the fact that you're really, really on a tight timescale, and you can all get a copy of this, by the way. This can be downloaded. I've got a link on the website where you can download this and look in more detail. Essentially, as I said, Friday, 7 o'clock, you get given the brief. everybody gets given all the stuff. We've already pulled the genre out of the hat. So 7 o'clock, we receive the final 3 details that we need. Usually my co-writer and I, driving back from the venue where we've picked it up back to our base, we kind of are bouncing ideas back and forward, and hopefully by the time we actually get back to the house, we have an outline story already, and we kind of know what we're doing, we know what characters we have. I guess one thing I should explain is, 48-hour film project, the rules state that you can't have a story pre-created. It's, you know, I guess you could, but the rules state that you don't do it. What you are allowed to have pre-planned is you are allowed to have actors lined up, because obviously you can't just on the day suddenly phone actors randomly and say, you know, can you come and act for us? So you're allowed to have actors lined up, and you're allowed to have locations lined up. So you may have 2 or 3 possible locations and come up with a story that kind of fits one of them. Same with actors. You may have maybe 4 or 5 actors lined up, but actually only need 2 of them for your story. So it tends to be that we're mixing what we have in the back of our mind with locations and actors, as well as all the stuff that 48-hour film give us, and kind of bringing the story together from those elements. So we typically have something to eat, have a glass of wine, start writing. Usually my co-writer starts writing. She's much faster than me, so she writes it. A couple hours later, I usually start doing a second draft, going through it. It's quite funny because she's done more stage work. It tends to be very verbose. So I'm going through, taking out huge swathes of dialogue and replacing it with 2 or 3 kind of shots. And she'll come back later on and say, why did you take that out? And kind of bounce things back and forward. It's kind of an interesting way of working. Once we've actually got the first draft though, we usually print a copy out and give it to a couple of others, actually both our partners, who then go through it, look for what props are required, any costumes that are required, make a list of those. And while one of us is actually battering away on that on another draft, the other person will work with them to say any details of the props, and then we start trying to find where we can get those, obviously very, very quickly. Try and find, kind of have the final version of the script. It's really probably more about midnight we actually have the final version of the script. And then my last bit of work for the night is I'll create a shot list, so that the next day we kind of hit the ground running. We've got a list of shots ready to go, and also so we've got the minimum stuff to do. We don't just randomly do loads of angles and loads of takes of extra stuff. Following day, we usually get everyone together about 6ish, give everyone breakfast, because that's really the most important thing. That's why the actors and crew keep coming back, because they get a good breakfast. And we sit and have a little read through of the script, batter any kind of final ideas, any concerns that we have over it. I'll try and get to location for 7:30, get everything set up, again make sure everyone knows what we're doing, start shooting, and then by around about lunchtime we try and give what we filmed to the editor to start working with. Now this is where 3D starts to make it more difficult. These cameras, this Sony camera specifically, records the 3D footage in one file. So it creates a left eye and a right eye, but it's all inside one container. So what you have to do is you have to actually run it through a processor that splits it into a left and a right image before you can start editing. Sony Vegas, on the other hand, which crashes all the time, can bring that file in, but it's the only program that can do it. So we had no choice but to effectively pre-process all these shots. So that can take hours, which really is nasty and slows us down. So the earlier we get them to the editor to start processing, the kind of better it is for us. Always have time for lunch, really important. We aim to have finished shooting by 5 o'clock. We've generally made it with an hour or 2. No, I don't think we've ever shot later than 6. We've done it 3 times. So generally, we're pretty tight on our timescales. And then Again, have something to eat. You can see everything revolves around food here. Have something to eat, and we start the edit, usually about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I'll sit with the editor probably till about 10 or 11, at which stage I'll go to bed because I've usually been up since about 5, and the editor will edit through till, well, whenever they've got a first cut ready, usually 3 in the morning or something. The following morning, I tend to get up early, have a look at the first edit, and I have an absolute heart attack and have a panic because I've never seen a first edit that I've been happy with. I feel sick and I go, why did I even do this? And it's happened every time. So about, I get a good strong cup of coffee and then start chopping and changing it a bit. I kind of usually work through until the editor gets up again, and then hand over to the editor with some notes. At which point then I start working on the soundtrack, unless I've got kind of a musician friend who's worked with us, on this one he worked with us, and doing any visual effects that we need, which in this case there's not particularly any visual effects for us, I don't think, but in the other film I'll show you later, there was an awful lot of visual effects to try and squeeze in. Stop for lunch. Then after lunch, really colour grading, 3D grading, doing your first render. Again, anyone who works on films, you'll know, you sit there and watch that thing rendering. Gets to the end of the render, you play it and there's something wrong, and it's like, oh, okay. And you know that you look at that 7 o'clock deadline, and at that point you're starting to go, okay, now things can't go wrong, computers can't crash. The worst thing you see is when you get to drop the film off, you see some teams come running in with their laptops with it still rendering, and it's like, the time's counting down, and see, it's rendering, and they do give you a half-hour leeway, but on that half hour they stop. So if your film isn't rendered and burnt onto a disc that you can give to them, you're not actually submitted to the competition. They will screen your film, but you're not submitted into the competition. And it's almost heartbreaking when you see people with their laptop. It's rendering. So we do the first render, fix it, because there's always something wrong. Final render, leave the house by 6 o'clock, that's always our aim, and drop off the film by 7. And the first beer after dropping off that film tastes so good. It was like I'd never drank beer. The first time we did this, it was so great. Hardly, that first time we probably hadn't slept quite as much as we anticipated, but it went well. So, I'm actually going to play this for you now, but before I play it, I'll tell you what we pulled. We pulled genre, we pulled horror from the hat, which for Makura and I was the ideal genre to pull. We both like horror films. And the fact of doing our first kind of 3D horror, it was just a dream come true, really. We were like, yes. The character is Kit Young, who's a collector. The prop is Cake. And the line of dialogue that we have to get in is, what am I supposed to do with this? So, I'll screen it for you. That was 2 days of my life.